Welcome back to another episode of Rock Boys Football. Hugh Freeze, the Auburn Tigers, kicking off spring practice, putting the pads on. It's getting real for Auburn as they go through spring practice, and continues to be one of the more exciting teams to monitor in spring practice across the country. You look at the national media and the conversations a lot of the national media members are having, especially within the SEC. Nobody is talking about this Auburn football team going into 2025, and a large part probably has to do with what we saw from them in 2024. What makes this team so fascinating is they have the talent. This roster has been completely overhauled. It's a complete 180 from what we saw when Hugh Freeze took over this program. They have the talent to be an extremely dangerous football team in 2025. A dangerous team that not enough people recognize how dangerous they can be, but we're looking for some things to come together. And I think what's unique about it is there's just a lot of teams in the SEC that don't meet the talent threshold to really compete at the highest level. Auburn was in this spot in 2023. And it didn't matter how well this team came together. They did not have the dudes to go win at a high level in the 2023 year. Going into 2025, yes, there are some question marks we have for Auburn, primarily at the quarterback position. But if it does come together and you get good quarterback play in 2025, this team's going to surprise a lot of people. I think the Auburn fans who follow this program recognize it. I don't think a lot of the national media members do. Now, spring practice is going to be the time where we get a feel for if this football team is coming together the way it needs to in the 2025 year. But you got your foot in the door from a talent standpoint, which is not something Auburn could say 2 years ago when Hugh Freeze took this job. Want to get into some early buzz around a couple of different players as we were working our way through spring practice. Before we get into it, as always, to the Auburn fans, appreciate you guys. And I know that Auburn basketball has taken a center stage, and rightfully so. Check that team out this weekend. Very good basketball team. The amount of support that the Auburn fans have shown the boys in the winter and spring months as we've talked the recruiting trail, as we work our way into spring practice, it means the world. Appreciate you guys. If y'all do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel. Much more importantly, would love to get some feedback from the Auburn fans in the comment section in terms of expectations going into 2025, because I look at this team from a pure what I see on paper and say the expectations should be high within this Auburn fan base, much higher than what I think the national media kind of recognizes. So I would love to hear how you guys are sitting in spring practice going into 2025. Without further ado, let's get into it. I want to start with just some overall takes, some overall feedback. Number one, and most importantly, something kind of stood out to me when Hugh Freeze was talking to the media, and he said, we have the talent where less is more. And what Hugh Freeze means by that is, go back to the 2023 season. If you wanted to win at a high level, you had to out-scheme your opponent because you weren't better from a talent standpoint. Look at where this Auburn roster sits in 2025. The work he's done on the high school recruiting trail, the work this program has done in the transfer portal, Auburn's going to have the opportunity to simplify their operation in 2025 and just say, hey, if you guys go out and execute a simple game plan, you are better than the players that we are playing. And we can win a lot of football games just off the talent that we have on this roster, which there's not a lot of programs that can say that. Auburn is getting there going into 2025. And we talk about all the frustration that we've seen from, this team over the last 2 years, sloppy play, not being able to win close games. When you have the ability to simplify what you're doing, that's going to help you operate better, execute better, and win close games. And I feel like finally going into 2025, and I agree with you, Freeze, from what I see on paper right now, this team does not have to get overcomplicated with what they're trying to do from a scheme standpoint because they're more talented than just about any team that they go up and play against in 2025. Now, the number two thing is systems are more in place. And what I mean by that is, think about when Hugh Freeze took this program over and the work that had to be done through this roster and the amount of aggression that Hugh Freeze showed in the transfer portal in 2023 was not only a new coaching staff, it was a brand new football team. And then in 2024, the roster still was going through some changes. But more importantly, the coaching staff was kind of brand new last year, 12 months ago, going into spring practice. Now we're sitting here and say, yeah, we made some really good additions from a personnel standpoint going into 2025. But more importantly, as you start spring practice, you're not starting from scratch in terms of scheme, in terms of coaching staff. Hugh Freeze has found the roster that he wants, but I also think he found the coaching staff that he wants. And I think that's going to matter for Auburn going into 2025. Now, the biggest storyline here is the quarterback spot. If you were to give me a genie and I could ask the genie, hey, if can you guarantee me Auburn has good quarterback play in 2025? I would tell you this team has the chance to win 9-10 games. I truly believe that from the talent that I look at on this roster. Now, are we going to get good quarterback play? That's what we're going to wait and see. Now, the center stage conversation here is, what is Jackson Arnold going to bring Auburn? We're not going to hear any insane feedback early on in spring practice. But the one thing that I love to hear that we are hearing about Jackson Arnold is that he's confident and he's getting his confidence back. Like this kid, there ain't no question marks about the talent that Jackson Arnold has. If you have question marks about Jackson Arnold's talent, go back and watch his senior year film. Go back, watch him throw at the Elite 11. This kid can make any throw that you want him to make. What happened in the 2024 season was, yes, Jackson Arnold did not play very good football, but it was a disaster on the offensive line. They couldn't run the football, couldn't protect him. The wide receivers were all banged up. I don't know of many quarterbacks that would have had success in that Oklahoma offense in 2024. And Jackson Arnold's confidence took a hit. You could tell he wasn't that confident quarterback that we saw as a true freshman playing for Oklahoma. He took a step back. What I want to hear early on in spring practice is just that Jackson Arnold has kind of found his swagger back, because we know he can play and we know he has the pieces around him to play at a high level. Now, can we get Jackson Arnold that confident 5-star going into 2025, and to hear that he's growing that confidence back, that to me matters in a big way. I think the second thing that you probably take note of is Deuce Knight is that guy. He's much more advanced than Walker White was 12 months ago as a true freshman. I don't think it's going to be this year, but the feedback that you're hearing early on from Deuce Knight is he's going to be a very good quarterback for Auburn at some point. So you feel decent about the quarterback room. And again, as we get a little bit more competitive in spring practice, those scrimmages start taking place, spring game 11-on-11, you want to make sure Jackson Arnold's taking care of the football is probably the thing that I'm looking forward to hearing the most. But as of right now, I think you're hearing all the right things. Number two, this wide receiver room, we knew it was going to be good. It was just a matter of how good is it going to be. It's legit from what we're hearing coming out of spring ball. Eric Singleton, quote, like the fastest player on the football field. We knew he could burn. We knew he's really good. But to hear that he's kind of taken right where he left off at Georgia Tech, that's obviously good. Cam Coleman taking a step. Look, we know Cam Coleman's really good. Can he be a lead in 2025? Here's the other name, Perry Thompson. Now, I feel like Perry Thompson kind of gets lost in the shuffle because you had Cam Coleman, you add Eric Singleton, Malcolm Simmons played well as a freshman. Ain't nobody talking about Perry Thompson. He was a guy that we knew was physically ready, but probably had to mature as a football player. Get a little bit more diverse in his route tree. He was kind of just a vertical guy coming out of high school. You're hearing good things about Perry Thompson too. It's an abundance of riches around Jackson Arnold. And you kind of get the sense that, hey, if Jackson Arnold plays good, this Auburn offense is going to be a problem in the 2025 year. Offensive line's a little banged up, but the guys who are banged up and working through injuries are guys that you're not necessarily nervous about. Connor Lew dealing with the lower body injury, Xavier Chaplin working through an injury. Look, both of those guys are 2-year starters. I'm not concerned about either of them. If they're healthy in 2025, we know what we're getting from both of those guys. Auburn, it has a couple of injuries, but the injuries are at positions of guys that we kind of know can play. The last remaining question for me is on the defensive side of the football, and it's on the defensive line. And as we get the pads on and we get a little bit more competitive in spring practice, that's when we're going to get our feedback. It's specifically, hey, is this defensive line deep enough? We know what we have with Malik Blockton. We think we can get a better version of him going into year 2. I think the center stage guys are Malik Autry, Jordan Crawford, Antonio Coleman. There's a wide variety of weights that they're coming in at. Malik Autry, obviously big body, 330, I believe he weighed in at. Can we get one or two of those bodies ready as a freshman? And it does not need to be a starter. right? I don't think any of those guys are going to start for Auburn in 2025, but can they be guys that play 10, 15, 20 quality depth snaps a game? Because on that defensive line, you're going to be rotating those big bodies in and out. And it's like, we don't need Malik Archer to play 60 snaps, but can he give us 15 quality snaps as a depth piece in 2025? Because if you get that, that's really the question mark that we have for Auburn outside of maybe off-ball linebacker, where you're young but really talented. So one of the conversations you have with Auburn is that there are certain positions where you might look at and say, oh, there's not a ton of returning production, but this team's super talented. I mean, Amaris Williams taking over, getting more playing time. He's a guy that it could be better than a guy like Jalen McLeod. And Jalen McLeod was really good for Auburn, really productive. And Amaris Williams could be an upgrade going into year two. I would say the same exact things for some of these linebackers. A guy like DeMarcus Riddick, maybe you're replacing a guy like Eugene Asante, but you want to hear them coming along. We'll close it out there. I think you're hearing all the right things from this Auburn team. Obviously, we're going to learn a lot more about this team as it gets a little bit more real in spring practice. Appreciate you guys rocking with it. If y'all do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel, and we'll talk to y'all later. Peace.